Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Selena from Wholeness Campaign, and today I want to share with you just the raw, vulnerable, how much did my mold remediation cost me? Was it worth it? I'm going to share some of the check boxes that I went through when I was looking for a remediation company. Let's jump in. Okay, so let's cut right to the chase. We spent about $11,250 on our mold remediation, and you might be thinking that that's absolutely crazy because that is such a large number. But when you consider that we bought an old house and we were already saving on the fact that we were buying a house that needed some work, this really kind of just went into the pot of money that we were going to use to purchase a nicer potentially home anyway. So for us, it actually did end up making sense. I will mention that this is actually a fraction of what some companies charge for remediations. I know I got quoted upwards of $30,000 to $40,000 for a full remediation of our house, and as low as around $1,100. Prices for remediations can vary, but really what I was looking for was a company that was going to do the job correctly. I didn't want somebody just coming in and spraying the house, something that I could have done myself, just really sanitizing, because that doesn't actually handle mold correctly and long term anyway. And so I'm going to run through a lot of those boxes that I was looking for in a remediation company and how I managed to kind of get it to be a lower price point on the spectrum of what's available out there while still trying to make sure it checked a lot of these health conscious boxes. So to start out, I will say that it really was worth the money. It does seem like a high price point. There are people out there who are able to do all of that work themselves. We felt like this was a little bit outside of our comfort zone, especially as first-time home buyers. So we did opt for somebody to come in and do it for us. We were handling, insulation that had been contaminated, drywall that needed to be removed. We had several areas that needed to be really thoroughly inspected and looked at, as well as treating wood, which you can purchase products that you can treat wood yourself, but they were really able to do that in a way that enclosed the space and protected us from further health consequences, because when you are handling mold, there is byproducts of molds that can get released when you go to try to tackle it. And so I preferred to have kind of the safety of them handling the more problematic spots with that level of care and caution that we most likely just were not going to be able to do on our own with as little experience as we had with this whole idea. So in addition to the $11,250 bill that we got for the remediation, that does not include any of the extra costs that go into repairing a home that was water damaged. So things like repairing the actual leak areas, dealing with the humidity problems with dehumidifiers, managing the air quality afterwards. We purchased several air purifiers as well as an ionizer for our HVAC system. We got our HVAC cleaned after we had the mold remediation. We did an inspection. There were all of these extra costs that honestly I couldn't really total up in my head because it really was a lot, but that does go separate to the remediation process, and it was an expensive part of dealing with the mold in the home. Mold is not a light issue. It's not something to be taken lightly, especially in high doses. We were experiencing symptoms, and I knew enough about mold to not go the cheap route because I knew that there can be health consequences with that. And I've heard stories of people living in mold for years and developing all sorts of issues. So again, for us, this really was worth the investment, especially since we were kind of lopping that in with the purchase of our home price. There actually are better companies out there, and like I said, more expensive companies out there. I'm going to link one in the description box below that is extremely health conscious. Um, we actually couldn't even afford to get a quote for this place, but I know that if I was dealing with mold and I had all the money in the world, this is exactly the company I would use. They actually specialize in being more of a health conscious brand. They used to be called All American Restoration. I think they've changed their name, but I'll link it in the description box below if you're interested, if you're looking for even some references, because this company was actually willing to help me find a less expensive remediation company, which was very sweet of them because they know how expensive these things can be, and not everybody can do that, but they really are committed to people's health and helping them get better. So I felt like we really picked a middle of the ground. You know, it was expensive enough that it really checked these boxes, but it wasn't so expensive that it was completely like breaking our savings. So the things that I'm really looking for, the main boxes I was looking for a remediation company to check, and this is some of what I learned from that company that was very health conscious, is that you really don't want a company who's just going to come in and spray. You want them to remove all contaminated drywall. So they're not just treating drywall. Drywall cannot be treated with mold. Drywall, when it's contaminated with mold, needs to be removed fully and taken out of the house. They will also treat wood. So some companies will actually remove wood, but this company at the very least treats and kind of encapsulates the wood, preventing the wood from regrowing mold potentially in the future. They would remove any carpet. So they removed tiling on a floor because we were going to actually do that anyway. And they were able to completely like gut and clean out a room. But carpeting was completely removed because once that's contaminated with mold, it's actually really hard to remove it, particularly the levels of mold that we were dealing with in our basement. So you may not be dealing with like extremely high levels, but we were kind of in like the red zone when we tested. And so we were taking it a little bit more seriously. We're not going to just keep that carpet laying around after remediation like this because we knew that there's risk of recontaminating a space when something like so porous like carpet is left after a process like this. They also removed all insulation in the areas that were affected. So in our attic, we did have some mold. They were able to completely remove our insulation, and they recommended then us getting it re-put in after they treated all of the wood up there. For us, that was an issue of ventilation and humidity control, and so we actually then had to deal with the, reconstructing the ventilation system for our bathroom and making sure that there was proper airflow in our attic space so that mold didn't just regrow, because again, this stuff doesn't really change if you don't actually change the structural issues in the house. And then we were also looking for a company that is third-party tested for inspection afterward, and they had 100% satisfaction guarantee. So when you're getting mold tests and remediation, you would really want to get them done by separate people, because the person testing it should be evaluating it without any kind of bias towards their own personal profit. The remediator should be doing their thing. They really shouldn't be the one testing it afterwards to tell you whether or not they did a good job, because they probably every single time will tell you that they did a good job, and that's not always the case. And so we had a third-party tester come in, and we wanted a company that really valued that third-party inspection as a way of checking their work, and were committed to redoing any areas that weren't done properly. So we actually did have the third party come in, and they were able to tell us a couple areas that they wanted to just like tweak, and the remediation company came back and they were able to fix those areas. So again, if you had gone with a really expensive remediation company, they may have been more on top of those little areas that we had to kind of have that third party check. But the most important thing here is having a remediation company where the third party inspector is allowed, welcome, and that they're actually really looking for that feedback. You really don't want them kind of like finding loopholes and making things look better in the end than they actually are. I feel like now that I'm going through this, there's probably so much more I could add to this. And, this is a mold series on my channel, so stay tuned. There will be more content around mold and how to manage it effectively, safely, and without fear coming soon. So I hope this video was helpful. I'm going to leave the total right here of what all we spent on every little thing in our remediation process. So I hope this video was helpful. Just know that you don't have to spend this entire big lump sum amount. This is just what we did to manage it with the resources that we have, and I know that everybody's doing their best. If you got any value out of this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. It is my passion to walk alongside people as they heal and grow. It inspires me and hopefully brings encouragement to you. Thanks for watching.